The transport pod's warning lights flashed red as it tumbled through space. Inside, He-Jin gripped his seat tightly, watching as the small research station grew larger through the viewing window. This was not how his first day of work was supposed to go. Emergency landing protocol engage, the pod's computer announced in a flat voice. Please brace for impact. He-Jin closed his eyes and thought about the strange turn of events that had brought him here. Just 6 hours ago, he had been excited about his new job as a food science consultant for the Galactic Research Network. Now he was about to crash land on a station that wasn't even his intended destination. The pod hit the station's emergency landing pad with a loud bang. Metal scraped against metal as it slid to a stop. When He-Jin opened his eyes, he found himself staring at a group of surprised aliens through the pod's cracked window. Do-Young, the station's lead researcher, couldn't believe what he was seeing. In 15 years of running the research station, they had never had an emergency landing, and they had certainly never had a human visitor. What is it doing here? Mireille, the security chief, asked as she scanned the pod with her sensors. Her silver skin reflected the station's bright lights. According to the emergency beacon, this is a GRN transport pod, Do-Young replied, checking his datapad. But it was supposed to go to Station 7, not here. We're Station 23. The pod's door opened with a hiss, and He-Jin stepped out carefully. He straightened his uniform and tried to look professional, despite feeling very out of place. Hello, he said with a small bow. I'm He-Jin, the new food science consultant. There seems to have been a navigation error. The aliens stared at him in silence. Humans were rare in this part of space, and most of the station's crew had never met one in person. Food science? Do-Young finally asked. What is the purpose of studying food? Nutrients are nutrients. Before He-Jin could answer, a loud alarm started blaring through the station. A young alien rushed into the landing bay, his blue scales changing color with anxiety. Sir, he called to Do-Young. The main food synthesizer has malfunctioned. The backup systems are failing too. Do-Young's eyes widened. How long until complete failure? 2 hours, maybe less, the young alien reported. We'll be left with nothing but emergency nutrient paste. He-Jin watched as the crew's faces fell at the mention of nutrient paste. He had heard about it. A gray, tasteless substance that provided basic survival nutrients. Even aliens hated it. I might be able to help, He-Jin said carefully. I noticed you have a greenhouse section on the station, if you have Earth-compatible plants growing there. Those are research specimens, Mireille interrupted, not food sources. He-Jin smiled. With the right preparation, they could be both. That's what food science is about, turning raw materials into something that's both nutritious and enjoyable. The aliens looked at each other, clearly confused by the concept of enjoyable food. But with their synthesizers failing, they didn't have many options. Do-Young sighed. Very well. Mireille, please show our unexpected guest to the greenhouse. I will contact Station 7 and inform them about the transport error. It seems you'll be staying with us until we can arrange proper transportation. As He-Jin followed Mireille through the station's corridors, he couldn't help but smile. This wasn't the assignment he had expected, but it might be even more interesting. These aliens had never experienced real cooking before. Maybe being stranded here wasn't such bad luck after all. What he didn't know yet was that his cooking skills would soon save more than just mealtime. They would save the entire station. But for now, he was just happy to see actual vegetables growing in the greenhouse ahead, a small piece of Earth in this distant corner of space. The greenhouse was bigger than He-Jin had expected. Rows of Earth plants grew under artificial lights, their leaves reaching up toward the purple-tinted growing lamps. He walked between the rows, touching leaves gently and smelling familiar scents. Please don't handle the research specimens, Mireille said, following close behind him. Some of these plants took years to cultivate. He-Jin stopped at a large plant with round red fruits hanging from it. These are tomatoes, he said, and over there you have basil, oregano, and what looks like garlic. You've been growing a perfect pasta garden without knowing it. Pasta? Mireille asked, the word strange on her tongue. Is that a type of scientific classification? No, He-Jin laughed softly. It's a type of food. These plants together can make something delicious. He paused, seeing her confused expression. When was the last time you enjoyed a meal? Mireille's silver skin shimmered as she thought. Enjoy? Food is for survival. We take our nutrient supplements and continue our work. Just then, Jae-ho, the station's botanist, entered the greenhouse. His scales were a light green color, matching the plants around him. The specimens are growing well, he said proudly. Though I don't understand why earth plants need so much water. He-Jin turned to both aliens. Would you like to understand why humans care so much about food? Let me show you what these plants can do. After some discussion and many safety protocols, He-Jin was allowed to harvest a small amount of vegetables. The station's kitchen was basic, designed only for heating nutrient packs, but it would have to do. He worked carefully, chopping tomatoes and herbs while heating water in a pot. The aliens watched with growing interest as strange smells filled the kitchen. More crew members appeared at the doorway, drawn by the unusual aromas. What is that smell? Do-young asked as he entered the kitchen. It's affecting the air quality sensors. That's the smell of garlic and herbs cooking. He-Jin explained. It tells our brains that food is coming. Good food. He had found some protein blocks in storage and broke them up to mix with the tomato sauce he was making. It wasn't perfect, but it would be better than nutrient paste. The temperature is damaging the molecular structure, Jae-ho observed, watching the sauce bubble. This process seems inefficient. Sometimes, He-Jin said as he stirred the sauce, the most wonderful things come from changing molecular structures. He lifted the spoon and offered it to Jae-ho. Try it. Jae-ho looked at Do-young for permission. After receiving a nod, he carefully tasted the sauce. His scales suddenly changed from green to bright blue. The flavors, Jae-ho said in surprise. They're dancing. How is this possible? One by one, the crew members tasted He-Jin's simple tomato sauce. Each one had a similar reaction of surprise and delight. Even Mireille's serious expression softened when she tried it. This is why humans cook, He-Jin explained as he served the makeshift pasta dish. Food can be more than survival. It can bring joy, create memories, and bring people together. Do-young watched his crew enjoying their meal, showing more emotion than he had seen in months. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should reconsider the greenhouse's designation as purely research space. Does this mean I can cook again tomorrow? He-Jin asked hopefully. Yes, Do-young replied. Consider it a cultural exchange experiment, but please document your processes. The way these simple plants transformed is quite remarkable. As He-Jin watched the aliens enjoy their first real meal, he felt at home despite being far from Earth. Sometimes, he thought, the best discoveries happen by accident. What he didn't realize was that this was just the beginning. His knowledge of cooking would soon prove valuable in ways none of them could imagine. A week after He-Jin's arrival at Station 23, the greenhouse had changed. Between the rows of research plants, new seedlings were growing in special sections marked food production. Jae-ho had become fascinated with human farming methods and worked with He-Jin to plant more vegetables. These earth plants grow differently when you talk to them, Jae-ho said one morning, his scales turning a warm orange color as he checked the new sprouts. Is this part of human food science? He-Jin smiled as he harvested some ripe vegetables. Some humans believe plants respond to positive attention, but the real science is in the soil and care we give them. Their conversation was interrupted by Mireille entering the greenhouse. He-Jin, she said, we need your assistance. We found some local plants during our last survey. Do-young wants to know if they are safe to eat. In the research lab, Do-young showed He-Jin several strange-looking plants. They had purple leaves and orange roots that glowed faintly, Our tests show they contain nutrients, Du Young explained, but we don't know how to prepare them. He Jin examined the plants carefully. He had learned that in space, new foods needed extra caution. I can test them in small amounts, he said. We'll start with basic cooking methods. The station's kitchen had improved since Ho-jin's arrival. The crew had helped him modify some equipment to better suit cooking needs. Even Su-bin, the quiet materials specialist, had become interested and created better cooking pots from station materials. Ho-jin worked carefully, testing different parts of the alien plants. He boiled some, roasted others, and made notes about each test. The aliens watched with growing interest as he worked. The root changes color when heated, Su-bin observed, watching the orange root turn bright blue. Just like our mood scales. Ho-jin nodded. Food often changes when cooked. That's part of the science and the art of cooking. After many tests, He-jin created a simple dish combining earth vegetables with the new alien plants. The result was unexpected. The alien roots had a sweet, nutty flavor that complemented the earth vegetables perfectly. This is remarkable, Du Young said after tasting the dish. The combination creates new flavors our sensors didn't detect separately. Word spread through the station about the new dish. Soon, more crew members were bringing samples from their research expeditions for He-jin to test. The kitchen became a place of discovery and excitement. Even Mai-Ray, who had been skeptical at first, started spending her free time in the kitchen. I never understood why humans had so many words for taste, she admitted one day. Now I understand we didn't have enough words. But not everything went smoothly. Some experiments led to funny faces and quickly discarded meals. He-jin kept a special log of what he called interesting failures, dishes that taught them what not to do. Cooking is like science, he explained to the crew. We learn as much from failures as successes. One evening, as the crew enjoyed a meal combining foods from Earth and their research planet, Ho-jin noticed something odd. The alien plants seemed to react to the station's vibrations. He made a note to investigate further, not knowing this observation would soon become very important. Tomorrow, he announced to the crew, I want to try something new with temperature control. The way these plants react to heat is fascinating. What He-jin didn't realize was that his experiments with heat and local plants would soon lead to a discovery that would save all their lives. But for now, he was just happy to see the crew enjoying their meal, their scales glowing with pleasant colors in the station's artificial evening light. 2 weeks after He-jin's experiments with the local plants, Station 23 began experiencing problems. It started with small things. Slight temperature changes, minor power fluctuations, and unusual readings from the ground sensors. He-jin noticed the issues first in the kitchen. The heating units weren't maintaining steady temperatures, making it difficult to cook properly. The power seems unstable, he mentioned to Su-bin one morning while trying to prepare breakfast. Su-bin checked the station's systems on her datapad. Her scales turned a worried gray color. The power fluctuations are getting worse, she said, and our food supplies are running lower than expected. In the station's main control room, Du Young was reviewing concerning reports. The station's foundation showed signs of stress, and the backup power systems were working harder than usual. When Mai-Ray entered with her security update, her expression was serious. The ground sensors are showing increased activity, Mai-Ray reported. Something is happening beneath the station. Do Young called an emergency meeting. The entire crew gathered in the main hall, their scales showing various shades of worry. He-jin stood near the back, listening carefully as Do Young explained the situation. The planet's geological structure is becoming unstable, Du Young said, showing holographic maps of the area. Pressure is building under the station. If it continues, we may need to evacuate. But the next supply ship isn't due for 3 months, Jai-ho pointed out, his scales turning a pale green with anxiety. And our emergency pods are limited. The situation grew worse over the next few days. The greenhouse began showing signs of stress, with some plants wilting despite proper care. The ground sometimes trembled slightly, causing equipment to rattle. He-Jin spent more time in the kitchen, trying to make their dwindling food supplies last longer. As he cooked, he noticed something strange about the local plants they had gathered. They seemed to react differently when the ground trembled. One evening, while preparing dinner, He-Jin watched as an orange root from their last expedition began to fizz and bubble when it touched a spilled mineral solution. The reaction reminded him of something he had seen before, but he couldn't quite remember what. The next morning, a stronger tremor shook the station. Warning alarms sounded throughout the corridors. He-Jin rushed to the greenhouse, where he found Jae-ho trying to save falling plants. "The station's foundation is shifting," Jae-ho explained, his scales now a deep gray. "Do-young says we have maybe 3 days before the damage becomes critical." As He-Jin helped Jae-ho secure the plants, he noticed the strange reaction again. The local plants were responding to something in the soil. It reminded him of his mother's kitchen back on Earth when he was a child. Suddenly, He-Jin's eyes widened. "Jae-ho," he said urgently, "I need to see the geological survey data, and I need samples of the mineral deposits under the station." "Why?" Jae-ho asked, surprised by He-Jin's sudden excitement. "Because I think I know what's happening," He-Jin replied. "And more importantly, I think I know how to fix it. But first, I need to be sure about these mineral formations." As they hurried to the research lab, neither of them realized that He-Jin's understanding of simple kitchen chemistry was about to become the key to saving Station 23. The solution would involve principles more commonly found in cooking than in advanced geological science. In the research lab, He-Jin examined the mineral samples under a scanner, while Jae-ho displayed the geological data on the main screen. The ground trembled again, making the equipment rattle. "Look at these readings," He-Jin said, pointing to the mineral analysis. "These deposits are like giant versions of baking ingredients. When they mix with the underground water, they create pressure, just like when you mix baking soda and vinegar." Yi-jun, the engineering chief, entered the lab. His scales showed dark blue patterns of doubt. "Are you suggesting our geological crisis is similar to your primitive food preparation methods?" "Yes," He-Jin replied firmly. "And that means we can solve it the same way." He turned to the screen showing the underground formations. "We need to release the pressure slowly, in controlled amounts, like opening a shaken drink carefully instead of all at once." Do-young joined them, studying the data. "Explain this solution," he requested, his scales showing interested purple patterns. He-Jin took a small sample of the minerals and mixed them with water in a clear container. The mixture bubbled and expanded rapidly. Then he took another sample and added the water in small, controlled amounts. The reaction was much gentler. "If we drill small holes in specific locations," He-Jin explained, "we can control where and how fast the pressure releases. It's like putting vents in a cooking pot to let steam escape slowly." "This is a research station, not a kitchen," Yi-jun protested. His scales flashed with dismissive orange patterns. "We cannot risk everything on cooking principles." The station shook again, harder this time. Warning lights flashed as new cracks appeared in the laboratory wall. "We don't have time for better options," Mayuri said as she steadied herself. Her security training made her practical. "How would we do this, He-Jin?" He-Jin quickly drew a diagram. "We need to drill holes here, here, and here," he said, marking spots around the station's perimeter. "Then we introduce small amounts of catalyst, water mixed with specific minerals, to start controlled reactions, like adding ingredients in the right order when cooking," Jae-ho realized, his scales brightening with understanding. Do-young studied the plan carefully. Another tremor shook the station, and pieces of ceiling fell nearby. He looked at his crew's worried faces, then at He-Jin's confident expression. "The human solution is unusual," Do-young announced, "but our usual methods have failed. Sometimes the simplest answer is the correct one." He turned to Yi-jun. "Begin preparations for drilling." Ray organized the safety protocols. As the crew moved to action, He-Jin felt relief wash over him. But he knew the hardest part was still ahead. They would need perfect timing and coordination to save the station. Jai-ho, He-Jin said, I need your help preparing the catalyst mixtures. They must be exactly right. He smiled slightly. Think of it as following a recipe, but one that will save all our lives. The station's systems continued to flash warnings as they worked, but now there was hope in the air. Sometimes, He-Jin thought, the best solutions come from unexpected places, even from something as simple as remembering how ingredients react in a kitchen. Time was running out for Station 23. The ground tremors grew stronger as He-Jin and the crew prepared their unusual solution. In the modified kitchen lab, He-Jin and Ji-ho worked quickly to mix the mineral catalysts. These proportions must be exact, He-Jin explained as he measured components carefully. Too strong, and we risk making the reaction worse. Too weak, and nothing will happen. Subin had converted their cooking equipment into geological testing tools. She watched as He-Jin tested different mineral combinations, her scales shifting between focused green and worried gray. The kitchen thermometers are more precise than our geological sensors, Subin noted with surprise. They can detect smaller temperature changes in the mixtures. Outside the station, Yi-Jun's engineering team worked in protective suits to drill the release holes. The ground shook beneath their feet as they positioned the drilling equipment. Each tremor was stronger than the last. The drilling must be precise. Yi-Jun instructed his team, checking He-Jin's diagrams. These holes are like pressure valves. Their position and depth will determine if this plan succeeds or fails. Inside the control room, Do-young and Ray monitored the station's systems. Warning lights covered nearly every screen. The foundation supports were straining under the increasing pressure. Main power is down to 60%, Ray reported. Her silver skin reflected the red warning lights. Backup systems are engaged, but they're struggling. He-Jin entered the control room with a container of carefully prepared catalyst. The liquid inside glowed with a soft blue light. The first batch is ready, he announced. We should test it on the smallest drill site first. The crew gathered to watch the test. He-Jin poured a small amount of the catalyst into the test hole. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground began to vibrate differently, not the sharp tremors from before, but a gentle humming. The pressure is releasing slowly at the test site, Subin confirmed, checking her instruments. The reaction is controlled, just as He-Jin predicted. Relief showed on the crew's faces, their scales brightening with hope. But He-Jin remained focused. We need to prepare enough catalyst for all the sites, he said. And the timing of each release must be perfect. They worked through the station's artificial night cycle. Ji-ho and He-Jin prepared more catalyst mixtures while Yi-Jun's team completed the remaining drill holes. The station's shaking made their work difficult, but they continued. In cooking, He-Jin told Ji-ho as they worked, timing is everything. Add ingredients too soon or too late, and the recipe fails. This is the same principle, just on a much larger scale. Subin adapted more kitchen tools for their needs. Pressure cookers became mixing chambers. Temperature probes were converted to geological sensors. The station's kitchen transformed into a geological research lab. As the final preparations were made, Do-young called the crew together. Tomorrow, we attempt to save our station using methods none of us would have considered possible, he said, looking at each crew member. Our survival depends on trusting in knowledge from an unexpected source. He-Jin looked at the lined-up containers of catalyst, each one carefully measured and prepared. Tomorrow would determine if his understanding of simple kitchen chemistry could save an advanced research station. What none of them knew was that their unusual solution would change how the Galactic Research Network viewed human innovation forever. The morning arrived with severe tremors shaking Station 23. Support beams groaned under the strain, and warning sirens echoed through every corridor. The crew gathered in the control room for their final attempt to save the station. All drill sites are ready, Yi-jun reported, his scales showing a mix of professional blue and anxious green. Engineering teams are in position. He-jin stood before the main control panel, surrounded by containers of his carefully prepared catalyst. Each one was marked with numbers indicating its precise order of use. The process had to be perfect. Remember, He-jin instructed, we must follow the sequence exactly. Think of it as following a complex recipe. One wrong step, and everything fails. Do-young gave the command to begin. He-jin directed the first team to pour the catalyst into the initial drill site. The liquid flowed down into the planet's crust, disappearing into the darkness. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then the ground began to vibrate with a low, steady hum. Steam rose from the drill hole, carrying a mineral smell that reminded He-jin of baking bread. First reaction is stable, Su-bin announced, monitoring her adapted kitchen sensors. Pressure is decreasing in Section 1. He-jin checked his timing device. Modify from a kitchen timer. Second site, prepare for catalyst introduction, he ordered. We must maintain the sequence. The second team moved forward with their container. Just then, a violent tremor shook the station. Warning lights flashed as new cracks appeared in the walls. Several crew members lost their balance. Main power failing. Mirai called out, switching to emergency systems. Despite the chaos, He-jin remained focused. Continue with the sequence, he insisted. The reaction must not be interrupted. The second catalyst introduction proceeded as planned. Then the third. Each time, the ground's vibrations changed from sharp, dangerous tremors to a controlled release of pressure. It's working, Jae-ho exclaimed, his scales glowing bright orange with excitement. The pressure readings are dropping across all sectors. But their success was not guaranteed yet. As they prepared for the final catalyst introduction, the station's lights flickered ominously. The foundation creaked under their feet. Final site, He-jin announced. This is the most critical moment. Like adding the last ingredient to a delicate sauce, timing is everything. The last team moved into position. He-jin gave the signal, and they poured the final catalyst. The ground shook one last time, then settled into a gentle vibration that gradually faded to stillness. Su-bin checked her readings, her scales shifting from worried gray to relieved blue. Pressure levels are stabilizing, she reported. The reaction sequence is complete. The control room erupted in celebration. Crew members' scales flashed with bright colors of joy and relief. Do-young approached He-jin, his expression serious but grateful. Your understanding of simple chemical reactions saved our station, Do-young acknowledged. Perhaps there is more to learn from human cooking methods than we realized. He-jin smiled, feeling both exhausted and satisfied. In cooking, we learn to respect even the simplest reactions, he explained. Sometimes the most basic principles solve the most complex problems. As the crew began damage assessment and repair work, He-jin returned to his kitchen. The station was safe, but he knew their success had changed more than just the ground beneath them. It had changed how these advanced beings viewed human knowledge. Now, he said to himself, preparing to cook a celebration meal, let's show them what else human cuisine can teach them. 3 months after the geological crisis, Station 23 had changed significantly. The once sterile research facility now featured an expanded greenhouse and a properly equipped kitchen laboratory. More importantly, the station had become famous throughout the galactic research network. Do-young stood in front of his communication screen, presenting their latest findings to the Network Council. The integration of human culinary principles with our research has yielded unexpected benefits, he reported. Our understanding of chemical reactions has improved considerably. Behind him, He-jin worked in the new kitchen laboratory, where both cooking and scientific research took place. The room represented a perfect blend of human innovation and alien technology. Students from other research stations now visited regularly to learn what Do-young called the human approach to science. The cooking methods that saved our station have applications in various fields. Du Young continued his presentation. We have improved our mineral processing, enhanced our understanding of chemical reactions, and developed new research protocols. In the greenhouse, Jeho tended to an expanded collection of plants. The research specimens now grew alongside cooking ingredients, with careful notes tracking both their scientific and culinary properties. His scales glowed with pride as he recorded data about a new hybrid plant they had developed. The human concept of experimenting with flavors has transformed our research methodology, Jeho explained to a group of visiting scientists. We now understand that unexpected combinations can lead to remarkable discoveries. Myray, who had once been skeptical of human methods, had created a new security protocol based on He Jin's approach to timing and preparation. Like following a recipe, she told her team, proper security requires both precision and adaptability. The station's reputation grew throughout the network. They became known not only for their scientific achievements, but also for their innovative problem-solving approaches. The term "cooking up a solution" became common in research stations across the galaxy. One evening, as the crew gathered for their now traditional shared meal, He Jin prepared a special dish combining Earth ingredients with local plants they had studied. The table had become more than just a place to consume nutrients. It was where ideas were shared and new theories were born. When I crashed here 6 months ago, He Jin said as he served the meal, I thought it was bad luck. Now I understand it was exactly where I needed to be. Du Young raised his drinking vessel in a gesture he had learned from He Jin. To the unexpected wisdom found in simple things, he said, and to the human who taught us that science exists even in a kitchen. The crew's scales glowed with warm colors of appreciation and friendship as they shared the meal. The station hummed quietly around them, its foundations now stable thanks to their understanding of basic chemical principles. In the station's official records, a new section had been added, Culinary Science and Innovation. The first entry read, sometimes the most advanced solutions come from the simplest sources. Never underestimate the science of everyday things. As He Jin looked around the table at his alien colleagues, now friends, he smiled. They had learned to appreciate human cooking, but he had helped them discover something even more valuable. The power of combining simple knowledge with advanced science. The Galactic Research Network had gained more than just a solution to geological instability. They had gained a new perspective on human innovation, proving that even in the most advanced corners of the galaxy, there was still much to learn from the simple science of making food.